Let's take a look at an old CRT monitor. There's a little bit of distortion on this because the conveyor's slipping. You can see the tube comes out as black. That's because there's quite a lot of lead in the glasses they use on CRTs to shield it from the internal X-rays. So unfortunately we've got all these horrible lines on there, but we can still see some of the details of the components. So that's pretty like the main 9 output transformer. You can see all the components on the PCB and the edge of the shielding quite nicely. And a power drill. There's quite a lot of detail there. If we can line it up a bit, we can see the motor, the gearbox, wiring in the handle. It's got speed control in it. This is a switch mode power supply that's completely potted in an aluminium extrusion, so can't normally see what's inside it. So here we can see there's the main transformer. There's some more inductors here. That'll probably be for the power factor correction. You can clearly see the cores inside the wire as they twist around. So it looks like there's maybe a couple of toroidal inductors there. That's all the other components on the PCB. Here's an example of this organic and inorganic detection. What I've scanned here is a large can that's got some epoxy resin in it. If we hit the organic strip button, you can see that the contents change quite dramatically, whereas the can changes hardly at all, so indicating that these contents are organic. If I press the inorganic strip, that sort of makes the can disappear, but the contents stay pretty much the same, so you can actually discriminate different types of materials. And obviously some of the things that you'd be looking for, like explosives, tend to be organic, so it can sort of discriminate whether it sees something that it thinks warrants further investigation. Here's a slightly more dramatic example. What I've put through this is a bag of sugar and a plastic container of salt. Now you can see on the standard image they just sort of come out as grey blobs, but if you look at the pseudo colour image, if I press the organic strip, the sugar and also the plastic container are highlighted very clearly, because obviously the plastic's organic, so is the sugar, and the inorganic, again it shows very clearly that the salt is the inorganic material, so you get very clear discrimination based on sort of the chemical composition and the different X-ray characteristics of those compounds, which is quite impressive. Alright, this is a scan of my laptop. You can see some quite clear features. You've got the fan and the heat pipes here. Got I think that's either the speaker or it might be the memory backup battery. You've got sort of the main battery visible here. Oh, actually no, it's not the battery. Those are the battery cells here. I think that might be there's a solid state drive on it. That's maybe the metal can around the solid state drive. The shape's slightly distorted because of the way the shape of the beam, you do get some geometric distortions based on which way around objects are placed in there and whereabouts on the belt they are. Because you've got like the fan beam going to the sort of detectors around the top and back. Now, one of the problems I found with having this, sort of deciding things to look at X-rays, is that almost everything I own I've already taken apart, so I know what's inside it. Let's take a look at this flight recorder. You see this is all sort of coming out fairly dark because, of course, there's a lot of metal in there, but we can line it up to highlight some details. That's just pressing the high pen button, sort of high penetration. The only thing we're seeing here is things like the edge of the tape assembly, where it's going through quite a large thickness of metal. So we've got the tape assembly, we've got the transformers in the power supply, and obviously the PCBs there, and you actually see the tape heads. Take a look at a few other smaller bits and pieces. Here we've got this large RFID reader, which is potted. That's over here. That's a smaller, again, potted RFID module. There's a big hybrid A to D converter a smaller positive RFID reader, and a couple of credit cards and a transportation card that have got RFID tags built in. Right, so this is that AZD converter, so you can see the pins here and sort of various bits of circuitry on the substrate there. This is that large RFID module, and you can clearly see the coil wrapped around the outside and the various bits of circuitry inside it. That's that small module. You can see there's they do two versions of this. There's a small and large version, so it looks like the only difference is the coil size, because that inner bit of circuitry looks about the same size as the small module. Again, that's the medium size reader, and you can see they're not using the whole area for the antenna coil. I think they've got mounting holes there, but again you can very clearly see the coil there. Surprisingly, you can hardly see anything at all on these cards. I think the amount of metal in them is so small they don't really show up at all. You can't really see anything at all on those. Right, this is a video recorder, and you can see we've got the head drum here. That's probably a motor. I'm not quite sure what that is. That might be maybe another motor. And we can clearly see the power supply. We've got the main transformer in the power supply here, and some of the other power supply components. I think those are I think those are SCART connectors. There you can just see the metal pins of. And there's a vertical PCB on the right. If you look at the colour display, you can see at the top we've got the front panel, which is plastic, and a few other bits which I think the dense parts, those are just an interaction between the two X-ray beams, but sort of the main organic part is the plastic front. So it's going through the metal top. Right, I've got a collection of assorted high voltage potted things to look at. This is a laser power supply. These are a couple of voltage multipliers for TV monitors and TVs. This is the ballast and high voltage igniter for a high intensity discharge sort of car headlamp bulb thing. This is the igniter unit from that big projector I pulled apart quite a long time ago. This is an inductor out of a defibrillator, a high voltage vacuum relay, and a standard TV flyback transformer. So we'll see what these look like. Right, that's the main ballast from that HID lamp, and that is the high voltage unit. You can't really see much in that, it's a bit on the small side. Here's one of the voltage multipliers, and you can see the sorts of diodes in there, and these will probably be capacitors as part of the multiplier. This is that laser power supply, so you can see there's one main transformer in there. There's probably a multiplier on the output of that. This is that vacuum relay. Again, you can just about see the wires coming in and the contacts. That defibrillator coil doesn't look particularly interesting. It's probably just a sort of fairly large inductor. I can't really see any significant detail in that. This is the igniter from the projector. You can see a large coil. Generally the way these work, they've got a very large, heavy coil that the main lamp current goes through, and then it couples through a spark gap to the edge of that to produce a very high transient voltage that the inductance of the coil allows to come out briefly. Can't see a great deal, and that might possibly be a spark gap there. I'm not totally sure. There's probably some ferrite bits there, but you can't really see very well on that, unfortunately. That's the TV flyback, and you can quite clearly see the sort of layered windings. You've got these sort of vertical sections here, and I think you see that that is probably one of the rectifier diodes in there. Here's another view of that igniter, and you can now actually see the individual turns of this main coil. It's still a little bit hard to make out what's going on the rest of it though. And this is a battery pack from an old laptop. You can sort of see the 6 cells, but you can also actually see the cell orientation. You've got the opening at one end of the cell, there's the contacts there and the PCB in there. And This is a current clamp meter. Might be able to see some details of the current sensor in there. Incidentally, this is just a big lump of steel that I've put in the plastic crate just to stop it slipping on the conveyor belt. You can see a fair amount of detail. You've got obviously the metal in the actual magnetic stuff in the jaws. There's the sensor's probably in here somewhere, and that's just the spring below there. And you can see the battery in there, and obviously the screws and the actual components, and 4mm sockets there. Next on the conveyor belt we've got this little HP printer. Again, most of the bits are fairly small, but obviously we've got the main metal carriage there. Can't really see much detail in there. That big lump there is going to be the main motor, and this the metal spring on there, but nothing hugely exciting. And again, on the colour display we can see that that's inorganic, which is obviously the main metal thing, and that's organic, which is the plastic housing. And this is a big car audio amplifier. You can see the big DC to DC coil there. You can see the transistors and the output terminals and some of the internal wiring. And here's a couple of big RF mains filters. You can clearly see obviously there's the main ferrite choke inside, and this large one's got two big common mode coils in there. Surprising amount of empty space in that big one though. I think they may be trying to make you think you're getting more for your money than you actually are. There's a lot of empty in that. And this is an old aluminium packaged helium-ion laser tube. You can quite clearly see the internal structure here. Zoom in on here. Sort of the internal electrode at the top, the central glass bore. Let's see it at the end. Stuff inside aluminium seems to come out really nicely. You know, the X-ray seems to penetrate it quite well. You still get a lot of detail of what's inside stuff, whereas steel, it takes a lot more to penetrate through steel. Also, it's the high penetration sensors that seem to be the ones that are most flaky on this thing, so it's harder to get decent images for anything that has to go through the steel first, because those sensors don't work very well. Right, here we've got some moulded connectors. These are just there's IEC connectors, 13 amp plug, and there's a three-way splitter on here. There's another moulded lead. Should be able to see how they've done the wiring in these quite easily. And you can see in this splitter there's just some joints, not clear whether those are soldered or crimped. You can very clearly see the individual cores within the wire. And you can just about see how you can see the fuse holder very clearly, and then the cores of the wire going into the plug there. Right, I seem to be rapidly running out of interesting things to X-ray, so I think there's probably only about one more thing to try.